All right, Anya, we'll just give everybody a couple of moments to jump in the call. All right, welcome everybody to another Wellbeing Live. Really excited to have everybody here today. And before we go into the content, I introduce our lovely guest, Anya. I just want to give a special shout out and our thoughts to everybody in Southeast Queensland and Northern New South Wales, knowing that there is a lot of flooding happening in those areas, and there's going to be a lot of hardship down the track as a consequence of this. So I hope everybody's doing well and safe where you are. And yeah, feel free to reach out to Active and Thriving at any time. So welcome everybody. So today's session on Wellbeing Live, we've got the very special guest, the CEO of RedSeed, Anya Anderson, and also founder of RedSeed. So Anya actually founded RedSeed in 2009 when she saw an opportunity to use video-based online training to improve learning outcomes. She's had very unorthodox beginnings in economics and exercise physiologist to time managing frontline teams. And now she's actually a tech entrepreneur to engage people in real life change. So Anya is actually based over in New Zealand, and her company's been working with Australian businesses for the last 12 years. She and her team have gained huge insights into developing video-based e-learning that works and produces tangible results for the learner and businesses they work with. Our interest in engaging with Anya today was the way that they focus on e-learning to be a really practical and action-based way of behaviour change, which is what we're passionate about at Active and Thriving as well. So with that intro in mind, welcome Anya. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Josh, for having me, and hi everybody.
All right, so those that have been on 15 minutes with before, it's a very short form format where I'm just going to ask Anya 4 or 5 questions about her role and her topic. And what we're going to discuss today is the way we learn and technology's role. So Anya, you talk about focusing on behaviour change in your learning system. Why is that part of the learning process?
There's a few reasons that we're really focused on that. And if I just start with engagement, so most people who are doing learning want to have a really, really clear reason for that training. So they really want to know what they're going to get out of it. It's that whole what's in it for me component. How is it relevant to their role? Will it help them do their job better? Will it give them more opportunity? So it's quite key that they can see a really clear reason for that, and that's often around changing their behaviour. We think also that it's really, really important, particularly for workplace learning, that you get a new skill out of the training. So it's more than just training for the sake of knowledge. Knowledge is always good, but in most work environments, they're looking to solve a problem, and that problem is usually solved by a change in skill. So we want to really, really focus on changing that behaviour so that we can improve those outcomes. And those outcomes can be kind of all types of things, from they want to increase their sales, they might want to reduce the risk in the business, they might want to reduce the time it takes to get somebody up to a competency level. So there's a really wide range of things that they're trying to achieve, but typically all of those outcomes require their team to change their behaviours. So that's why we've got a real focus on that component.
It's really interesting, because I guess when I think back to online learning products that I've had to do in the past in corporate, it was very much the what's in it for me was that it was to get it done and forget about it. It's almost a compulsory item, and I think that's where it can be challenging, because they become a bit of a tick and flick exercise. So the way that you focus on the behaviours and the what's in it for me is quite powerful. And I guess, how do you get that messaging across at the start of the training so people realise that it's not just a tick and flick exercise? They're actually going to get a fair bit of value and long-term value out of this process.
Yeah, I think it's a real trademark of our content and the way that we develop our content. So it's really important for us to have a team of people here that understand how to create really engaging learning, but learning that is actually going to give the learner the outcomes that they're looking for. And so when people are familiar with our learning, kind of they get used to that style, and it's they know that they'll get good practical skills. So we're always talking about, what is this person going to be able to do differently when they finish the training that they couldn't do before they started the training. And that's kind of our, our checkbox for us to make sure that that learning is really focused on changing their behaviour. It's kind of the difference between what we call passive learning and active learning. So active learning really gets that learner involved in the way that they learn, and so that they're actively having to learn the knowledge, look at the skills, but then think about how they're going to implement them in their own environment. And they may also have to demonstrate that skill or practice that skill. And so there's a verification of that skill. Whereas passive learning, which is a lot of what you see online, is kind of just the information is fed to you. It's kind of up to you how much of that you take on board and whether you ever implement that into your kind of workplace or your daily life. And that's what we're always trying to focus on. I know you guys are always trying to focus on that too. How do you change those patterns? How do you get people to do something differently than what they were doing before? And adults are very hard. We're kind of set in our ways, and we tend to not be very good at learning new stuff. So it's about the mechanisms that you can put in place to help support adult learners to make changes.
Thanks for defining, I guess, the difference between active learning and passive learning. I guess the way that jumps out is when you look at active learning, it sounds like it's really about taking the theory that we're all very good at. There's lots of content online on every topic under the sun, but then going beyond just taking it in and understanding it and then applying it into that work environment, which is what your training solution looks like. Can you give an example of what how somebody might actually apply or put that active learning into practice?
Yeah, so our learning is developed in a way where we give people, and it's typically developed on a kind of what, why, and how methodology, which sounds really simple, but it's a really powerful technique. So what is it that we want you to know? Why do we want you to know it? And like kind of what are the benefits of that? And then how do you do it? So we give video examples of that, because video is a fantastic tool for demonstrating what great looks like. So once they've seen that, then it's really about now think about an example of how you might put that in place in your environment. So translating that from I'm just watching this thing and oh yeah, it looks quite good and it's a good idea, to okay, now how will that work in my environment with my team or my customers and the people that I interact with and kind of the products that I'm working with. And then so there's that component of thinking about it, and then how do I now do it? And it's about trying to support that learner to practice that skill, and then to get familiar with it and get comfortable with using it, and then to encourage them to use it kind of in the wild with their the people that they're interacting with on a daily basis. So it might be a new process, but it might be a soft skill, and soft skills are some of the hardest things to get people to try and kind of change and to learn. So it's really, really important that they're practicing those skills and that we're using a mechanism to help support that practice, which is why we use coaching in our environment.
And that's quite unique, Anya, like as far as the applied learning side of things, the active learning is really important. It makes a lot of sense to have those actions at the end of the module so people can actually ingrain them into their workday. And practice, I think, is a really important part. A lot of times people go to an amazing seminar and they'll learn all these great things, but then they'll never practice in their typical scenario. So that makes a lot of sense. What is very unique about what you do is the coach element, where you do include coaching. How important is that in a learning experience?
Well, I think coaching is hugely underrated in business. Most people acknowledge and know that coaching's a really, really widely used tool for skill development, particularly, I mean, most people, what comes to mind is sports teams and sports coaching. So, and it's typical that the world's best performers pretty much in any field have a coach, and the better they are, the more coaches they have. So you get people at the top of their game that will have multiple coaches. So they can obviously help encourage you, they give you feedback, help you kind of iterate your skill. But they also support you kind of when you have setbacks. They can share experiences. So kind of your best critic and your best kind of supporter at the same time. So they're a hugely beneficial tool in terms of gaining performance. And there's a lot of talk about, and learning, there's a lot of talk about kind of the 10,000 hours that are required to become an expert in any field, really, but with a skill. But that's really not just kind of any time spent on that skill. It's actively thinking about that practice. So it's conscious kind of practice. And that's where a coach can come into play. And there's really, really good data now to show the impact of coaching. So we have some data that shows that if you have a coach that is a skilled coach, so has some coaching skill, and is also familiar with the material that you're trying to learn and the skills that you're trying to develop, then that transition of learning and lift in performance can be as great as 40%. So like 40% extra over and above not having a coach is just like a phenomenal difference. I kind of find it really hard to believe that more people are not using coaching as a tool inside their business. So, I mean, it's just hugely underutilized, and you can tell that I'm pretty passionate about using it. So it's something that we spend a lot of time on incorporating into our training, and our whole mechanism, our whole tool supports that, having each learner have a coach that can support them and give them that feedback and to help them along the way. So it's kind of this whole thing of like, not manager, team member, it's, coach and team member. So that whole side-by-side supporting skill development is a kind of different relationship to, managing a team member. So there's some skills that are required around that as well.
Absolutely. And can you just, I guess, add a bit more clarity on who these coaches are? I guess people might be thinking it needs to be, a consultant with, 10 best-selling books and this and that. For the specific, I guess, active learning modules that you do, who would fit in the coach's role?
So the coaches are typically a line manager, but they don't always have to be. So it's becoming a coach is a really great skill development for anybody. So learning those skills to teach people, to encourage people, to support them along their skill journey is an amazing kind of set of skills that people can grow. And it can be a line manager or a leader, but it could also be somebody else in your business or in the environment that you're in that you want to extend. So it could be a team member that's really experienced, doesn't necessarily want a leadership role, but could be a phenomenal coach and help other people develop their skills. So we're typically pairing people with somebody inside their organization. As I say, it's most often their line manager, but doesn't necessarily have to be. So it's a two-way relationship, really. A coach helps the trainee develop their skills more quickly, but also to a high level. But at the same time, what you have is the coach developing their own ability around coaching and supporting people. So that's, it becomes this kind of symbiotic relationship where both people have got a lot to gain as part of that kind of relationship and that skill development.
Absolutely. And two things that have really highlighted in this very short conversation that we've had, Anya, is that we really do need to drill down on and give all users or all employees the what's in it for me, and then have that coaching relationship so they do have that extra level of knowledge sharing that goes on as well. And as you mentioned, there's going to be lots of really skilled people inside each organization on specific elements that they could make suitable coaches for.
Yeah.
So just in wrapping up, you are a tech entrepreneur. You've doing some interesting things in this learning space. So I'd love for you to share what you believe the future of technology and learning will be over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been challenging actually, and learning has changed. Probably the most rapidly it's changed in the last few years because of COVID, I think, in a really long time. But I think that there's some great things that are happening to learning, because as more learning has been online, we get learning to be more accessible to people. I think the challenges around learning is always about how to encourage all learners to engage and kind of make it accessible for people of all different learning styles, of all different ages, of all different socioeconomic status. And I think that that's going to continue to be a challenge in the future. It's kind of always, yeah, I mean, we can see new kind of developments with VR and those types of tools. They're still quite expensive tools. They still present some challenges in terms of the way that they're created and whether they're real life enough for people to really connect with them. But certainly been big step change in terms of getting online learning happening globally. It's taking some adjustment. For people to realise that it's not just taking your offline paper-based tools and throwing them online. They're quite different spaces and require quite different elements. But I think that will evolve over the next short while anyway.
Absolutely, the technology space is moving quite rapidly as the way that we work is changing.
Yeah.
So 15 minutes is up, hard and fast as always, Anya. So can you just let the audience know, I guess, where they can learn more about your experience and about RedSeed itself?
Yep. So you can always get a hold of us and see more about the business on redseed.com. So that's our website, and it's got all our details, our kind of background and what we do and what we offer on our website.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Anya. And thanks, everybody, for jumping on the call today. Yeah, I think just focus on, if you are in a position where you do develop learning content, hone in on the what's in it for me, and are you using active learning techniques? I think that's the two that jumped out for me today. Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next month.
Thanks, team. Bye.